Hello and welcome everybody. I know it's been a little bit, but I'm Ryan from Askreddit Tells, and we are bringing it back with a little bit of r/MaliciousComplaince. Before we jump into that though, I'd really appreciate it if you could hit that subscribe button and that notification bell to stay up to date on all the latest videos. Just fix it. I was in the military, and until re-enlistment, I was a mechanic. Not a very good one, but I could change parts with the best of them. This happened over 20 years ago. I did clean up the language quite a bit, but I think you'll enjoy it. Our platoon mostly had very good leaders, but we did have one douche staff sergeant who was the absolute worst. When he arrived, we already had a motor sergeant and a platoon sergeant, both of whom outranked him, so he was assigned the job of managing our vehicle inspections. There were daily, weekly, monthly, etc. inspections that had to be performed. Not a difficult job, but one day they assigned him to get him out of the offices since he didn't have anything else to do and nobody really liked him. Every Monday, the vehicle operators from the other platoons would come to the motor pool to do the weekly inspection. The mechanics were assigned to a set of vehicles to cover. We would usually work the repairs that could be done immediately, like replacing lights or tightening loose bolts. Then during the week, we would make all the other repairs, and when we're done, typically Friday, we would sit down to order all the parts that we didn't have in supply. I was working when one of the operators placed his inspection sheet on my clipboard and left. When I looked at the paperwork, I noticed his sheet listed a needed repair that was considered a deadline deficiency, a repair that must be performed prior to operating the vehicle per regulations. I informed the motor sergeant, and he said that particular repair wasn't critical, and nobody was really certain why it was considered to be a deadline. He also said that he would notify the platoon using it and would ask them to bring it back when it was convenient. Usually, if a deadline vehicle were being operated, we would send the wrecker out to retrieve it. So I do my repairs on Tuesday and Wednesday, and the vehicle still wasn't back. My work was very light that particular week, and I was done with all the repairs by lunch on Wednesday, so I sat down to order my parts. In walks douchebag sergeant. He instantly begins berating me for being lazy. He then asks if my repairs are made. I tell him that all the ones I could make are, and he asks for the paperwork, which he flips through quickly. He notices the one truck, and the conversation goes like this.
Is this repair complete? There's nothing written here.
No, but...
No buts. Go out to the lot and fix it. I don't want you doing anything else until it's done.
Yes, Sergeant. Our motor pool had assigned spots for each vehicle. I looked through the manual for the size bolts for the particular part, grabbed the appropriate wrenches, and headed out. I laid down the vehicle's assigned spot, raised my wrenches, and pretended to turn them. I lay there for an hour and a half wrenching air. Operators and mechanics noticed me, but didn't say anything. Several had heard the conversation and laughed a bit. The motor sergeant was walking the lot, doing his thing, when he noticed me laying there. The look on his face was priceless. He either thought that I had finally cracked, I was a bit high-strung those days, or maybe I had heat exhaustion. So he walks over, and I could see the gears in his head spinning, and he asks, after a minute of thought, what I was doing. I told him I was making the repair to this vehicle, which only added to the confused look on his face. And then he asked in a tone of voice reserved for the mentally impaired if I was aware that the vehicle was not there. So I replied, I know this, Sergeant, and you know this, but DS does not want to hear any buts. He only wants to hear me out in this lot until the repair's complete. Edit. Douche Sergeant did eventually get in trouble, just not for this. He did have several equal opportunity complaints for racism that eventually got him, but the motor sergeant knew me well. We had been deployed for a year, knew the situation, and he just laughed and told me to go back to work. He also said that I should have informed him of the situation so it could be resolved in a more productive manner. I quoted something military men have been told for a long time. Follow the last order given. I have quite a few stories with this guy. You are not to leave this room no matter what. So this happened when I was in 4th grade. I tell this story often when asked about messed up stories, and my mom still tells it as well. I was a bit of a class clown. As such, the teacher, let's call her Miss Meanie, she was mean to me. Because I was a handful, and she apparently didn't know how to handle hyper children. This was in the 90s, and one of my previous teachers told my mother I should be on Ritalin, to give you an idea of me as a kid. Anyway, I was always joking in class and distracting others. I was able to do my work, but I admit I know looking back I was a handful. So the discipline at my school was to put the kids outside of the classroom. It was a private school from K-12, so you could go from kindergarten to 12th grade. When you were put out in the hall, we were on a hall sharing 4th to 8th graders. And the adjacent hall, joined by a hallway with a dark storage room, was 9 to 12th. So I saw kids of all ages. Me being the sociable little monster I was, would make conversation with them, being friendly. They would always talk, especially the older kids. Older guys thought it was funny I was in trouble. I guess older girls thought it was endearing or funny. I don't know, but people always talked and even stood around to talk longer rather than passing by awkwardly. The teacher heard me and scolded me many times. She eventually moved me to that joint hallway with the storage room in it. It was ceiling to walls with boxes, but she moved some out and put a desk in there. It didn't have but one functioning light, blocked slightly by the boxes, so it was dark, barely visible, to write on my desk with. Once again, being sociable, I just stood in the hall and talked to passerby kids and older kids. Who was going to see me? It's at the end of the hall. No teachers came. Well, Miss Meanie caught wind and came back there to scold me. She gripped my arm hard enough to leave a red handprint, and pulled me into the back room with gritted teeth. She leaned in an inch from my face and said, with the very same gritted teeth, half yelling, "You are not to leave this chair," after pushing me down into it. "No matter what, no matter who you see, you are not to leave this chair again until I come and get you. You are to remain here and do your work, or we will be taking this to the principal and calling your parents." Me scared at that thought, couldn't help it since my brain is slower moving than my mouth. What if there's a fire? Joking, of course, through the same gritted teeth, "Even if there is a fire, you stay in this seat until I say so." So I did. Hours passed and it's nearly lunchtime. I'm starving. I never ate breakfast as a kid, so I'm starting down the dimly lit clock time like it might suddenly start doing backflips. I hear the fire alarm go off. We have a drill twice a month, so I wasn't shocked. I started to get up, as I know I was supposed to no matter what, but then remembered Mrs. Meanie gritting her teeth at me. Better do what she says, I thought, smiling, thinking it'll be funny to see her reaction, knowing it was only a drill. I saw the kids and teens all filing out. Remember how I said it was literally 8 grades worth of students? Picture 12 or so classrooms, each with up to 30 to 40 students in them walking down 2 narrow hallways, like a herd of chihuahuas through a coffee straw. So orderly, even in a straight line, is not happening. I see them all taper out and wonder where she is. I see them all gone and now it's empty, only the flashing light from the hallway alarm, and the ringing siren. I sit there thinking, oh man, when I see her face, it's going to be amazing. Giddy with excitement at the thought of it, I then smelled smoke. 2 fire drills a month, for 9 months a year, for my entire life, it felt like. And this time I smell smoke. Then I see smoke. I'm upstairs at the back of a dark hallway in an empty 2-story large school building. We had no windows in my school. Also, for some reason looking back, I'm sure this breaks some of the fire code now. Ah, okay. I might have messed up. I'm going to front. I started tearing up and getting watery-eyed, thinking I may have just committed suicide out of pettiness. When I hear stomping, loud and clear, she runs down the hallway, red-faced, teary-eyed, and out of breath, and grabs me. And for the first time, Mrs. Meanie is nice to me. She's hugging me and crying, rambling faster than I can keep up with. "Thank God, thank God, thank God, thank God, thank God, head count didn't see you. Panicked, messed up so bad. So sorry. Please forgive me." As she's carrying me down the hall, I come out. All the kids are in the parking lot and the fire trucks. Never saw those in action. Neat. They come out with several extinguishers. There was a small fire in the kitchen when making lunch. Thankfully it was contained to a small area and did no real damage. Only made a ton of smoke and was put out quickly by the firefighters. The principal wanted to know why I was there, and I told him truthfully, I was told not to come out, even if there was a fire. This wasn't a jab at Mrs. Meanie. Our principal was cold as ice and made you tell the truth. At my school, they actually paddled you with a wooden paddle with holes in it. Very old school type of punishment, even for the 90s. Irrelevant, but these horrors run deep. That thing whistled when swung and hurt. The principal had someone watch our class, and I'm assuming gave her an earful in her office for nearly the rest of the day. My mother was called, they all convened in the office, and once again I'm assuming words were said. My mother was livid and said she paid too much money per month to have me locked in a closet. Even I was being a little shit. There was better ways to punish me, like say call her first thing and let her put the fear in me. Which she did after this. I did not get off scot-free from her. As relieved as she was I wasn't dead, she knows all the shit was my fault in the end, and my stupidity could have gotten me killed. Mrs. Meany was a lot nicer to me then, a lot more patient, and I was less of a little shit. I still was a class clown, but within reason, and never tried to distract kids again. She was a lot nicer and more understanding, and tried to reach kids rather than scream and scold at first glance. I had a lot of bad times at that school and left only a year later due to a particularly bad incident in which once again my mother was present, not president. This time the teacher was fired for gross negligence that nearly hospitalized me. This time I was not being a shit. Another story for another time. Not malicious compliance on my part for that one. Edit, thank you for the award. Glad you liked the story. Were you guys troublemakers in little school? Like kindergarten, maybe up to 7th or 8th grade? I know I was. I was a serious troublemaker. This is Ryan speaking, by the way. I had to get in trouble. It wasn't until high school that I finally calmed down. What about you guys? Let me know in the comments. What kind of student were you? Impatient professor? We'll just flood your WhatsApp group. I rarely use Reddit, but for the first time today, I was part of an act of malicious compliance. Nothing special, but we had a good laugh about it, so here it goes. Sorry if my English isn't perfect, it's not my first language. I'm a student in Italy. Right now, we're all quarantined because of the very bad thing. But universities are still holding lessons using Google Meet. We've been in contact with our professors during last week via email, WhatsApp, and stuff. And today at 9 a.m., we started our regular lessons as if class was in session. This morning, our main professor, the one holding the most important lesson of our course, sent an email around 10 a.m. telling us he'll be holding his lesson tomorrow. We already knew this because he had told us multiple times in multiple emails. And in his messages, he wasn't asking for a reply. He sent this while the whole class was already connected with another professor and following her lesson, so we didn't reply right away. After an hour, he sent another outraged email asking why no one replied to his super important message yet, considering we were all home and with nothing to do. We were literally following another lesson. All of us. Cue the malicious compliance. 50 to 60 people replying, "Sorry, Professor, I was following the lesson name. Got it, see you tomorrow." At the same time in our WhatsApp group. After the first 30, he just replied, "Okay, I got it. You made your point. I told you it was nothing special, but we're easily entertained during this very bad time." And that, my friends, is the very end of today's r/malicious compliance. If you liked it, I'd really appreciate it if you checked out some of our other stuff and maybe even subscribed. As well as checking out our playlist and or sharing our videos, anything you can do to help our channel, we really appreciate here at Askreddit Tells. My name's Ryan, I'll be here today, I'll be here tomorrow, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.